I am standing in Warsaw, about 4,500 kilometers from the Niger Delta. Yet the fuel beneath my hand may have started its journey in Nigeria. And that raises a question that has bothered me for months. If Nigeria has produced oil for nearly 70 years, where did the wealth go? Look around me. The road was built, the lights work, the trains arrive on time. The village where Nigeria found oil in 1956 does not look like this. Same oil, two different worlds. So today, we are not following the oil, we are following ownership. Because I have started to think, the barrel was never the prize. Stay with me. You are watching Historic Capital. This is not a video you simply watch. It is an investigation we build together. Our community follows one rule: follow the money. Always. So let us begin where the money began. January 1956. A company called Shell BP, a creek called Oloibiri, present-day Bayelsa State. The first commercial oil in all of West Africa. By February 1958, the first barrels sailed away. At its peak, this region helped push Nigeria toward 2 million barrels a day. Now ask the simple questions. Who held the license? Shell BP. Who received the royalty? The government. Who decided how fast to pump? Not the village. And what happened to Oloibiri? By 1978, the wells were declared dry. The company moved on. Today there is a rusted signboard. Well 1, drilled 1956. That is all. The oil left.
Supposed to be a city, a tourist site, when children, these days like this,
children will come and see where the oil wells are
what are we not talking? Then you see this place was like this.
Okay.
Then this place, this block building, you see now they are building here.
Okay.
Now pavilion, they just use pavilion.
Okay.
When you're passing, you will see. This is the oil now. Come on, look at the look at the tree.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
Not just this, there's another one inside.
Wow.
This is where oil was going.
Okay, that was the first one.
This is the first oil well.
The poverty stayed. But that is not what surprised me. What surprised me was how little of this had to do with oil at all. Look at who held the pen. It begins before independence. Under the colonial framework shaped by Sir Frederick Lugard, the land and what lay beneath it belonged to the crown. Not the village, not the farmer, the crown. Then independence came, and the names at the top kept changing. General Yakubu Gowon, General Murtala Mohammed, General Olusegun Obasanjo. Later, as a civilian president, Obasanjo again. General Sani Abacha, President Umaru Yar'Adua, President Goodluck Jonathan, President Muhammadu Buhari, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Soldiers, then civilians. Coups, then elections. Watch carefully now. The presidents changed, the generals changed, the uniforms changed, but the contracts stayed almost exactly the same. The same companies, the same blocks, the same architecture. In many parts of Africa, this pattern is not unfamiliar. The faces rotate, the structure does not. And a structure that survives every government is more powerful than any government. Think about that. Then ask the next question. If the men changed but the deal did not, who was the deal really built to protect? So let us name them, not the oil companies, the actual companies. Shell, Exxon Mobil, Chevron, Total Energies, Eni, and on the state side, NNPC, the National Oil Company, and SPDC, Shell's operating arm in the Delta for decades. Now let me make ownership visible, because ownership is the whole story. For decades, one of the biggest joint ventures, the SPDC joint venture, was split roughly like this. NNPC, the state, 55%, Shell, 30%, Total Energies, 10%, Agip, 5%. Look at that split for a moment. On paper, the country held the majority, 55%. So why did it never feel like a majority owner? Hold that question. It matters more than it looks. For 60 years, these were the names on the leases, the joint ventures, the production sharing contracts. Different words: concession, joint venture, production sharing. The same shape underneath. The company finds the oil, the company lifts the oil, the company sells the oil, and the country takes a share, a royalty, a tax, a seat at a table it does not control. He who holds the knife and the yam decides the size of every slice. For 70 years, we held neither. But here is the door most people never open. The oil company was never standing alone. Behind every company stood a bank, an insurer, a trader, a lender. The barrel was visible. Everything that owned the barrel was invisible. Hold that thought. We will come back to it. Now let me show you one transaction. One block, offshore, deep water, believed to hold 9 billion barrels. Watch only the dates and the money. 1998. The military government of General Sani Abacha is in power. The block is granted to a small, unknown company, Malibu Oil and Gas, linked to Dan Etete, who was the petroleum minister at the time. 2001. A new government, under President Olusegun Obasanjo, cancels that and hands the block to Shell. No public auction. Shell fights. Arbitration begins. Years pass in rooms we never see. 2011. Under President Goodluck Jonathan, it is finally settled. Shell and Eni pay $1.1 billion for the block, plus a signature bonus to the government. The money goes into an account the government controls, and then the money moves, and a large part of it becomes difficult to trace. Now stay very calm here, because this is where it becomes uncomfortable. A court in Milan, in Italy, spent more than 3 years on this single deal, 74 hearings. And in March 2021, every defendant was acquitted. Shell, Eni, the executives, no one was found guilty. That verdict became final. I want to be precise. No court convicted these companies. The law says, not guilty. So sit with the strange shape of it. Over $1 billion moved. The judges themselves described cash they could not fully trace. The block sat undeveloped for years, and the system recorded no crime. That is not a loophole. That is the design. And a design that produces no guilty party is the most powerful design of all. Most investigations stop at the verdict. This one keeps walking, because the real question was never who broke the law. The real question is, who owned the block when the music stopped? To understand what happened, look at a country that found oil at almost the same time. Norway, 1969, a field called Ekofisk in the cold North Sea. Now watch what Norway did with ownership. In 1972, it created a state oil company, Statoil, and it set one rule. The state would hold a large share of every single license. Not a royalty, not a tax. Ownership. Then, in 1990, Norway built a fund. Every surplus from the oil flowed into it, and it was invested, quietly, for decades. Today, that fund is worth around $2 trillion, around 4 times the size of Norway's entire economy. Roughly $400,000 for every Norwegian citizen. Same era as Oloibiri, same black liquid. Now stop. Look at this side by side. 2 oil nations, Nigeria, Norway. Both started pumping in the same era. Now look at where they stand. Norway, a sovereign fund near $2 trillion. Nigeria, most of its people under the poverty line, importing the very fuel it should produce. Same oil. One built a fund, the other built a queue at the pump. Let that picture sit. Then look at the 2 endings. In one country, the oil ran out and left a rusted sign. In the other, the oil built a wall of wealth that will outlive the oil itself. What was the difference? It was not luck. It was not the size of the field. It was who owned the contract. Now come closer to home for many who are watching. Alaska, in the United States. 1976. As oil money began to flow, the people of Alaska voted to change the constitution. A simple idea. A share of the oil money would not be spent. It would be set aside in a permanent fund. And from 1982, something began that still happens today. Every year, eligible Alaskans receive a check, a direct dividend, just for being a citizen of an oil state. The amount rises and falls with the fund. A few $100s in lean years, and some years close to $2,000. In 2024, it was about $1,700 per person. Imagine that for a moment, waking up every year and receiving a check because oil was found beneath your state's soil. Not because you worked for Exxon, not because you owned a refinery, simply because the ownership structure said the citizen deserved a share. Now ask yourself the hardest question of the night. Why does a citizen in Alaska receive a check from the oil while a child in the creeks of the Niger Delta receives polluted water? Both sit on oil. The oil is not the difference. The ownership is the difference. The contract is the difference. The paper is the difference.
So someone tried to change the story.
For more than 40 years, Africa's largest oil producer imported almost all of its own fuel. 4 state refineries, built, then left to rust. We sold crude, cheap. We bought it back, refined, expensive. Then came one man's answer. Near Lagos, a refinery, built by Aliko Dangote, a $20 billion machine, the largest single-train refinery in the world, 650,000 barrels a day. Finally, the fuel could be made at home. This sounds like the happy ending. Watch what happens when we open the doors behind it. Door 1. Who financed it? Not mainly the Nigerian state. A large share came from a single lender, the African Export-Import Bank, Afreximbank. By their own account, they have committed around $15 billion to the Dangote Group since 2015. Recently, they underwrote $2.5 billion of a $4 billion loan for the refinery alone. Door 2. Where does the crude come from? Here is the part that should stop you. Africa's largest crude producer builds its largest refinery and then must import crude from America, from Brazil, from Angola. In 2025 alone, the refinery imported billions of dollars of foreign crude. Why? Door 3. Because the Nigerian crude was already spoken for, pledged, lenders in older deals, sold, before it ever left the ground. You cannot refine a barrel you no longer own. And door 4, the quiet one. There is a plan to list the refinery on the stock market. Nigerians would buy shares in naira, but the dividends are designed to be paid in dollars, backed by export revenue. Read that again slowly. The local investor pays in the weak currency. The return is paid in the strong one. Even the cure was built on the same logic as the disease. The land produces the wealth. The contract decides where it goes. And now, the most revealing move of all. After 70 years in the Delta, the giants are leaving the land. Watch the years. 2024, 2025. Shell sold its entire onshore business, $1.3 billion, to a Nigerian consortium called Renaissance. ExxonMobil sold its onshore arm to Seplat, around $1.3 billion. Eni sold its onshore subsidiary to Oando, nearly $800 million. Equinor, the Norwegian company, exited completely, $1.2 billion. Total Energies agreed to sell its onshore stake to a company called Chapal, $860 million. One after another, the oldest names in Nigerian oil, walking out the same door. But look at what they kept and what they sold. They kept the deep water, the new water, the profitable water, the future barrels. And they sold the swamp, the aging pipelines, the decades of spills. And under Nigeria's own petroleum law, the cost of the cleanup now sits with the buyers. So picture it clearly, 70 years of profit lifted out, and the bill for the damage handed over on the way out. A Nigerian face on a foreign-built machine. The ownership changed, the architecture did not. When the music changes, the dance must change too. But here, Only the dancers were swapped. Now bring all of it down to the bali, to rent, to food, to the pump. For years, the government paid to keep fuel cheap, a subsidy. Between 2005 and 2021 alone, tens of billions of dollars. By one official audit, over 70 billion. Then, in 2023, in a single sentence, President Tinubu ended it. Subsidy is gone. Fuel jumped from under 200 naira to 600 and more. The currency fell from around 700 to the dollar to more than 1500. Transport rose, food rose, rent rose, and the savings of an ordinary family grew thinner every single month. And then the creeks where it all began? The United Nations measured the water. In one community, benzene, a cancer-causing chemical, 900 times above the safe limit, in the drinking water of the people who sit on the oil. In 1995, a writer named Ken Saro-Wiwa stood up for that land. He and 8 others were hanged. The pollution they warned about is still there today. When 2 elephants fight, the grass suffers. The state and the companies fought for 60 years. The delta was the grass.
So return with me to Oloibiri,
To the rusted sign, to Warsaw, to the pump. The country was never poor. It was rich the entire time. The oil was always there. The mistake was believing the oil was the asset. It never was. Look at everything that actually held the value. The contract, the refinery, the lender, the trader, the insurer, the ship, the offshore account, the paper, the barrel was only the beginning. We watched the barrels, they kept the paper, and the paper is where the power lives. Norway owned the contract. Alaska owned the fund. We owned the ground and rented out everything above it.
I will not offer you a solution today.
There is no clean ending to a wound this old, only a question you can carry. If ownership is the real wealth, then look at what the world wants next. Cobalt, copper, lithium, the metals every phone and every car now needs. And ask, who is signing those contracts across Africa right now? Who will own the next barrel before it ever leaves the ground? That is a later file, but the next one is closer to home. You have seen who owns the oil. Next, we follow who controls the fuel, the pump, the price, the import. The first oil left Oloibiri in 1958. The question never left. The oil was discovered beneath Nigerian soil. Yet for 70 years, everyone has been arguing about production, while ownership sat quietly in the background, waiting. Because the barrel was temporary, the contract was permanent. If tonight changed how you see one pump, one price, one barrel, send this to one person who still believes the land is poor. Not a comment, one person. The truth is in the transactions. Follow the money.